Hello, baby. Why are you not answering my calls?
Sorry, pero wrong number ka ata.
This is Jake's phone, right?
Yes? Sino ka?
I'm his girlfriend.
Sino si Kim?
Sino?
Kim, yung girlfriend mo daw?
Kalma lang.
Alam mo, tangina ka, gago ka.
Birthday party. Si Dad. Ewan ko, nagkaroon ng prank. Ano? Danica Yambao. Hello?
Hello? Uy, ano, G ba kayo mamaya?
Ano yan?
Ilan tayo?
Where, Gigi?
Gina, dito lang naman sa may dorm namin.
Sige, sure.
Ano yan?
Nag-away kayo, no?
Ito sa inyo, basta punta kayo. Mamaya, mga 7.
Iiyak na yan.
Bye-bye.
Sige,
Gina,
bye-bye.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Bukas na to?
Wala ka na rin papagpanggap kasi kayo kanina. Yeah.
Uy, daddy ka! Ano nangyari? Dali, hintayin natin sila.
Sige.
Go lang. Ayun na. Sige, open nyo lang. Uy! In-invite ko sila. Mamaya sila ginagawa eh. Hi! Hello!
Dami naman na Riva.
Siyempre, sambatan yun yan.
Sambatan na yan.
Kulang ba?
Last naman yan. Last ba yan?
Guys, sana ka?
Grabe ka, oh.
Tara, open na ba natin yung isa?
Dalawa na.
Bakit?
Oh! Bakit?
Siyempre, para sa'yo muna yun.
Siyempre, ikaw
Tsaka
muna.
na!
Kwento ka. Ano kasi naman ganito?
Sure.
Kasi ganito yan, may tumawag sa babae. Nakita ko, ako yung sumagot. Isipin mo yun, niloloko niya lang pala ako. Ilang taon yun?
Kaya pala yung iniinom mo, no?
3 years!
Player!
Ay, nako siya yun. Napakagago. 3 years sinayang niya. Kalain niyo ba yun?
Well, boys will be boys.
Inom na.
Inom lang.
Bakit ako lang yung umiinom dito?
Diretsuhin mo yan! Shot!
When alcohol enters the body, 20% of the alcohol is absorbed by the stomach lining, which goes straight to the bloodstream. The remaining alcohol travels to the small intestines to be absorbed. A certain enzyme in the liver called acetaldehyde enzyme oxidizes the alcohol, which becomes acetaldehyde, which is poisonous and cancerous, and metabolized again into acetic acid, which is less harmful. Pumped to the lungs, which explains why the breath smells of liquor. The alcohol then enters the brain and slows down nerve cells. This explains why our judgments become impaired and movement becomes disrupted when we are drunk.
Ayoko na. Bakit na isang dos ka na? Hindi ko pa nga nalabas eh. Acid ata ako eh. Kumain ka ba? Bago. Ingay. Alis na kayo dito.
Wow. Umalis dito ba na?
Makakawi ba kayo?
Joke lang. Makakawi kami.
Dito na namin.
Tara na nga.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Pinapunta mo ba kami dito? May pasok ako.
Akin yan. Ano, lasing ka na ba? Bakit to?
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hyperacidity is a condition of the stomach secreting too much acid. This is also called acid dyspepsia. The cause of acidity of gastric juice depends on the concentration of hydrogen ion. This hyperacidity or acid dyspepsia is just a symptom of a more specific disease. Usually, when our lower esophageal sphincter loosens, hyperacidity will lead to acid reflux. Then, if chest pain is experienced without any congenital disease, heartburn takes place. Some of the causes of this disturbance is eating foods that contains acid, taking medicine for a long time, and vices such as drinking alcohol and smoking. Symptoms of hyperacidity includes presence of sudden pains in the epigastrium 1 to 3 hours after eating. Pains are usually caused by excessive muscle layer tensions in the prepyloric portion of the stomach. Others include too much saliva because of the irritation of the oral cavity with the acid, heartburn, and constipation.
One, two, three, go.
Asan ako?
Nakauwi ka na sa door mo.
Baroreflex sensitivity is used for the measurement of control of the cardiovascular system. It is measured by the degree of change in the heart rate or sympathetic traffic for a given change in blood pressure. Baroreflex serves as the homeostatic control of blood pressure. This usually happens when you first rise up from bed or suddenly stand up from a sleeping position, which causes gravity to drain away some of your blood from your head and upper torso. It results to a fall in your blood pressure and also a sudden blur of vision and dizziness in some situations, which only lasts for a short period of time due to the insufficiency of oxygen in the brain. The local imbalance in your homeostasis is detected by the baroreceptors, which are the sensory nerve endings in the large arteries near the heart. Through these, the brainstem, which contains the cardiac center that regulates the heart rate, receives the nerve signals. The cardiac center then responds by transmitting nerve signals to the heart, which speed it up its rate. Homeostasis is restored due to the fast heart rate, resulting to a rise in the blood pressure. Baroreflex demonstrates three common components of a feedback loop, namely a receptor, an integrating center, and an effector. A receptor is a nerve ending that senses changes in body and causes it to react in a particular way, such as the stretch receptors that monitors the blood pressure. The integrating or control center processes the information received by the receptors and relates it to other available information in order to determine the appropriate response for it. Lastly, an effector is a cell or organ which carries out the final corrective action for the restoration of homeostasis.
Paano ko napunta dito?
Pinatid ka ng guard ko eh.
Wala naman kagabi. Saktan tiyan ko.
Sobrang lasing mo kaya kagabi.
Saktan ko. Hala, ano ba to? Laki naman ang pimple na to. Tukin ko nga. Ay ko. Ay. Hala, nagdugo.
In the regenerative process, vasoconstriction is a response to two immediate threats: blood loss and the compromised physical barrier of the skin. The blood vessel is minimized to lessen the bleeding of the wound. A special protein called fibrin then helps the platelet form clot that keeps blood in and pathogens out. Next is the inflammation. It is a reddening of skin around the wound. The body sends special cells to fight any pathogens, and white blood cells or macrophages devour bacteria by phagocytosis. In order to let the WBC reach the wound site, the previously constricted blood vessel now expands, and this process is called vasodilation. Next is the proliferative stage. Fibroblast cells begin to enter the wound. They produce fibrous protein called collagen in the wound site, forming connective tissues that replace the fibrin from before. Then, as the epidermal cells divide to reform the outer layer of the skin, the dermis contracts to close the wound. The last stage is the remodeling stage or the maturation stage. This is when the wound matures as the newly deposited collagen is rearranged and converted, which can take over a year. The tensile strength of the new skin is improved, and blood vessels and other connections are strengthened depending on the severity of the wound.
Hala! Shania! Paabot ng napkin tsaka feminine wash. Ano ba yan? Ngayon pa dumating.
Menstruation occurs after hormone levels drop at the end of the previous cycle, signaling blood and tissues lining the uterus to break down and shed from the body. Bleeding lasts about 5 days. Day 7, bleeding has stopped. Leading up to this time, hormones cause fluid-filled pockets called follicles to develop on the ovaries. Each follicle contains an egg. Day 7 and 14, one follicle will continue to develop and reach maturity. The lining of the uterus starts to thicken, waiting for a fertilized egg to implant there. Day 14, hormones cause the mature follicle to burst and release an egg from the ovary, a process called ovulation. Over the next few days, the egg travels down the fallopian tube towards the uterus. Menstrual cramps are pretty common. Doctors think that cramps are caused by a chemical called prostaglandin that causes the muscles of the uterus to contract. Some girls feel easily irritated or crave certain foods a few days before their periods. These types of emotional changes may be the result of premenstrual syndrome or PMS. PMS is related to changes in the body's hormones. As hormone levels rise and fall during a woman's menstrual cycle, they can affect the way she feels, both emotionally and physically. Some girls notice physical changes such as being bloated because of water retention, others notice swollen and sore breasts, and some get headaches. It's also not uncommon for girls to have an acne flare-up during certain times of their cycle. Again, this is due to hormones.
Uy! Tara. Feminine wash, napkin.
Thank you.
Welcome.
There are two types of immunity. One is acting as the body's first line of defense, that is, innate immunity, and the other is specialized or adaptive immunity. But we're going to focus on the innate vaginal immunologic system, specifically on how it uses a great deal of bacteria to protect the human female vagina. Aside from the immune mechanisms such as pathogen detection and antimicrobial defense, colonization of the lower genital tract by bacterial species serve as a protective barrier against pathogenic organisms. So basically, there are good bacteria thriving in the human female vagina that protect it against bad microorganisms. A principal component of the normal vaginal flora is the lactobacillus species, which produce lactic acid and hydrogen peroxide. Production of these keeps the vaginal fluid slightly acidic, within a pH range of 3.5 to 4.5, which makes an unfavorable and hostile environment for pathogens. If any alterations are made in the normal flora, it can cause disruptions like infections and diseases. For instance, the frequent use of soap for washing the vagina might counteract its normal pH that protects it from infection. Feminine wash, however, contains lactic acid, which maintains the vaginal pH low, protecting the genitourinary tract from possible infections.